tell everyone name, pronouns, and why are you here?
Hi, I'm Rose, pronouns she, they. I'm here to talk about, well, kind of the opposite of what you talked about earlier, but not really, just like a different perspective. I'm here to talk about Jewish anti-Zionism and the response from Zionists, and also just organizing on campus.
Yeah,
Um,
you're an organizer, aren't you? For the
I
was it
am.
Jewish Voice for Peace?
I am. I'm a little new at this. I wanted to bring on a friend who's a little more established in the community on my campus community, but unfortunately she wasn't available for today. So I'm just going to go with what I think she would have said and what I have learned from the past few months of organizing and doing stuff. And I'm sorry if my voice shakes a little bit. Haven't spoken to whatever number of people this is before.
Don't worry, it's five people, and it will be
It's
okay.
5 people, and it's going down to zero pretty soon, anyways.
That's
So
true. Yeah, they can't stand anything that's not a debate. You know how it is.
exactly.
Yeah. So wait, I guess I wanted to intro with my thoughts and my perspectives on this. So we've never before seen such an upswell in support for the Palestinian people in the United States. You know, I have been a very active advocate for the rights of Palestinian people for the whole time I've been doing this, which admittedly has only been 5 years, but in internet time, that's a decent length of time. And, you know, for the most part, it's usually just been lefties who've been loud about this. Now,
Yes.
I know liberals are getting on board. They're having a bit of fun, too. You've been doing the actual organizing effort. I was very curious to hear what your experiences have been, especially since you do this on a college campus, which has always been a sort of political battleground, but now I imagine more so
Oh
than
yeah.
ever.
So political organizing is I have approached. So I've been watching you for a while. So I've kind of absorbed some of these like um, what's the word like goal first approach to activism. By which I mean my first question when oh my god, whenever anyone's planning any action is, what do we hope to accomplish from this? What are like the direct effects of what we're about to do? Um, so so like there was a protest a while back that we had scheduled um, where like we were going to protest some transphobic speaker. We we kind of there was some drama that ended up making it not happen, but like I was pretty much the first person in the conversation being like, okay, but like what are we actually doing here? Like, do we want to make sure they don't get a bigger voice because of this protest, et cetera, et cetera. So I did have like a like order of topics I wanted to discuss.
Please.
So first of all, just about a bit of an update, like of just like protests on college campuses. As you mentioned, there have been like a shit ton of. Wait, can I say that? Oh shit.
You can swear all you like, and you know you can
Um,
if you've watched the streams. Don't
yeah,
worry.
yeah, yeah.
But you're used to
Yeah.
doing organizing work, which means in your environment you typically can't swear, I imagine.
Oh no, I swear all the time.
Ah, there we go.
Um, even accidentally. So there have been a lot of protests on college campuses against Israel's actions in Palestine over the past few months since October 7th. Yeah. On our campus, it started after so there was an event organized by Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP, who are a pretty common organization on college campuses at this point around the country. And they organized it, I think, with a few other groups, basically just a vigil, like a small event in the chapel where like just people were able to talk, give speeches, and kind of just like grieve because there are Palestinian students on campus and they needed a community space to grieve. And not only did the university make us, well, I wasn't involved at this point directly, but I was involved with Students for a Democratic Society, not the old one, the new Students for a Democratic Society. We have a chapter on campus. We're pretty good. The university made SJP move their event because it was occurring at the same time as a Shabbat service, and they were concerned about violence, basically, about like unrest between Jewish and Palestinian students, which Palestinian students found very like offensive, obviously.
Understandable.
Yeah. And then after they made SJP move the event, which, by the way, was basically just a funeral. Like, that is the vibe that was going on there. They sent not one, not two, but 3 undercover public safety officers to the event.
Public safety officer, are those cops or are those just campus?
That is campus cops, basically.
Gotcha.
Campus security. I don't know if the terms that I use will get people to know exactly what campus I'm on, but whatever.
No. But yeah, though they're pretty common, like all across. And campus cops are cops. They're not like small security cops or whatever. At least at the university that I went to, they were literally just a police department that had their own little branch at the university. Because university campuses
a little while
big.
ago. They were trying to get guns. Actually, they were trying to get their like normal officers armed, and there was a whole thing about that. They seem to have stopped for now, but we'll see if that picks up again. But essentially, not nice people.
Yeah, I remember fondly when I went to university. One of the campus officers was doing their like little intro seminar or whatever, and we had a portion on what to do in the event of a shooting, and it was basically just this like middle-aged like balding fat white guy being like, all right, now last case scenario, all right, everything's not working out, you charge them. They don't expect that, okay? They're shooting, you just run at them, and hopefully you get to them quickly.
shock value.
Can't kill all of you.
Catch them off guard. Okay, yeah. So from that, there were a bunch of protests for the last few months, actually. Basically trying to get the university to apologize and recognize the Palestinian genocide as a genocide, and just a bunch of other divestment goals and stuff like that. There was recently a meeting between administrators and students that went pretty well, but they did end the meeting. I wasn't at the meeting, but this is what I was told. They ended the administrators ended the meeting saying basically, don't test us. Which led to today's action, which was not intended to be a protest, but SJP had some people standing in the student commons, and at least one person was arrested today. And it's not exactly clear what happened at the moment. So that's not great.
What do you think happened?
Well, because I wasn't there. I was fetching my medication from the hospital. From what I've heard, it sounds like this person felt threatened by the office, by some public safety officers, and hit one of them.
All right. Yeah, that will get you arrested.
Yep. Yeah.
It's been known to happen.
Meanwhile, on other college campuses, people are getting arrested left and right. University of Michigan, a week ago, I think, 2 weeks ago, 40 students got arrested for basically blocking their administration building, and when they were trying to do a sit-in. That was a whole thing. A bunch of weeks ago at a nearby university, a Jewish student got arrested and was doxxed on Israeli social media and stuff like that. So
I remember there was a lot of that at Harvard too, where there were open calls to like release the names of people associated with an org that made a public pro-Palestine statement, so they could like preemptively blacklist them.
And there are orgs that, you know, that's their job, that they just come on college campuses, or they use like information from college campuses, and then they basically use that to create a list of students. Like I think they're called the Canary Mission. I'm not sure how active they are currently, but they were one of them that was like really big for a while. So all this, I don't know how many months ago it is at this point. 2 months ago?
Thereabouts.
I think start of November. The Jewish students at my school, me and two others, we were like, well, there's more than that. But me and two other Jewish students at my school, we were like, we need to like counter these narratives of anti-Semitism on campus, because to be clear, there is no anti-Semitism, or there is very little on college campuses. At this campus, there is none, absolutely none. College campuses are a very safe place to be. If you're Jewish, you're surrounded by very progressive people and very well-educated people. It's not like you're going to be surrounded by like, you know, neo-Nazis or something.
Yeah, unless they come from out of school. I want to temper that just because I know people will run with it. Obviously, any kind of bigotry can be present anywhere. My impression is that while anti-Semitism is very common in the United States, you know, this is not typically from the, you know, disproportionately young and educated college demographic. Whereas when it comes to, like, say, Islamophobia, you'll see that shit, like, repped by the actual college staff. Like, they'll actually, you know, there's institutional weight there.
Well, luckily, our faculty have been pretty supportive of the protests, despite the administration. And basically, so we met together and we were like, we need to form an organization with a few goals. One is to just, you know, provide support for the pro-Palestinian protesters, and just be a Jewish voice for peace. And another one was to counter some of the narratives that we see in our own Jewish communities. Now, I don't know how much I can talk about this on stream, but it's been rough. You know, Jews are pretty liberal in America, and especially coming from such like what we thought were very like chill liberal families, and then the second October 7th happened, and you know, before that as well, but especially since October, like it was shocking to see like just all our family members suddenly be like, yeah, yeehaw, let's kill Palestinians. Oh god.
Clip.
Yeah.
No, I was saying clip. I was joking. No, this is a kind of ideological inconsistency, I guess, that's really been rearing its head lately, where there is, of course, a liberal bent towards the Jewish population in the United States. You know, who could possibly wonder why Jewish people are sort of critical of conservatism. But then when it comes to Zionism specifically, there's like a very knee-jerk reaction there, which I understand. You know, I disagree with it, of course, but the sort of historical precursor, like, you know, what led to that, it's pretty obvious.
There's definitely a fear in Jewish communities. A lot of people are acting very like much rooted in their fears right now, and it's really unfortunate to see how they're channeling like this perception of history as, you know, into violence, basically.
And that is usually the root of fascist movements as well, you know. At the core, ultimately, there is a fear of persecution from an outgroup. With the case of Jewish people, you know, there are a lot of outgroups who I consider, you know, I think are pretty reasonable subjects of suspicion. I don't think the Palestinians are. I don't think they have much power. but it's an unfortunate kind of like deliberate misdirection. You see this a lot with the rhetoric of Netanyahu, right? Where he'll talk about how, you know, the Jewish people are under threat, they're only safe in Israel, but then he'll not only do things that make Israel less safe, he'll pal up with people who make Jews less safe. Like with Trump, Netanyahu loves Trump, and Trump is loved by Nazis. So
Same with Putin. Netanyahu loves
yeah,
Putin, right? Yeah.
yeah, they get along weirdly well, considering the fact that, you know, Israel's supposed to be like a Western puppet state. Because strongmen like strongmen, you know, and,
Yep.
and Putin obviously is a supplier of far right interests all over the world. So yeah, it's a deliberate effort to displace that fear of persecution towards groups that are not actually committing it or at threat of committing it.
Yeah, I've really tried to kind of switch the narrative. Like, I'm not a history person, I'm a linguistics person, but I think people have this common like misconception of history where they view it more as a narrative of like individual of like all these individual groups, and so they end up being like, well, you know, there's, I mean, Jews are oppressed, but Jews are in Israel, so Israel couldn't be doing something wrong, rather than viewing it, you know, in a more Marxist or even intersectional stance, of being like, this is about power. Like, different groups, any group is capable of holding power, and we should oppose like the violence of, you know, of power, whoever is holding it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's non-essentialism essentially. It's just
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
understanding that these are forces that exist outside of individual groups and motivations, and they can be transposed pretty easily. You know, you can look at, like, I guess Rwanda for a pretty direct example of how easily things shift from you know, victim of colonization to genocider to victim of like subsequent ousting,
yeah.
and so it goes, right? So you said the arrest that took place was quite recent, correct?
It was today.
Oh, that is quite recent.
Yeah.
That's about as recent as it gets, I think, if my math is correct.
Well, it could have
So
been like a minute ago, but
I was curious, in terms of your messaging, how have you been? I guess what has your experience been in seeing how other people on campus have taken to your messaging? Like, what do you feel the attitude is? How you're reaching out to people and how they're receiving it, essentially.
yeah. So, well, when we like established ourselves as an org on campus, we're not affiliated with the university. We're affiliated with just Jewish Voice for Peace, and that was more of like we very much wanted it to be like an on the ground thing, and not like too concerned with whatever organization we were part of, I guess. So we chose Jewish Voice for Peace because they sort of matched our politics, and because they would give us like resources or anything we need if we needed them. But when and I'll come back to our establishment and our structure and everything, because I think you'll find that interesting. But like the first thing that we did was basically we made an interest form, and it got spammed with like 150 responses that basically called us either fake Jews or pee pee poo poo heads.
Gotcha.
So like we're really working on like some very mature people. But like it was the initial response from a lot of people on campus was pretty negative. But I think even more people, it was very positive. We're a very liberal or very like progressive campus. Actually, I feel like we're pretty left wing. Like I brought up the H Bomber Guy video with some people last night, and they all knew exactly what I was talking about. And like, so
That's good to know.
I think it's a pretty left wing campus. So we got a lot of support, and a lot of support from faculty too, including the Department of Jewish Studies and We have friends in the religion department and the history department and English too. All the places you'd expect to find lefties. Um, but yeah, a lot of there. So we met with a with two teachers recently just to talk about like what we're doing and what we can do moving forward. And what I learned from them, because they're actually like living in the city, and like just being Jewish around, Jewing around, there is a very strong like Zionist organization around here. Um, oh God, what's it called? The like Jewish Federation. They're very like powerful here apparently. Um, and it's like that kind of gave me a little fear about just what like people are capable of, because our campus is open. Anyone could like come in and like shoot up a protest or whatever. God willing. Oh my God. God forbid.
Slip.
Jesus. Oh
So
my gosh.
I want to know about these protests, how they're being handled and what you're doing in them. How have you, I guess, tried to spread the message? You said that
Yeah.
Jewish Voices for Peace has been willing to provide materials as well. I'm just curious what that entails, what the actual organizing effort looks like.
Yeah. So our protests are much smaller. Well, we're not a very big school, but we haven't really needed any outside support from Jewish Voice for Peace. We're getting stuff from PSL. They're sending people. PSL is Party for Socialism and Liberation. I know they have problems. I was involved in a protest in New York City that with PSL, and they did some really just stupid stuff.
I've heard rumors about that. Yeah, my
Yeah,
experience with yeah, no. Sometimes that's an issue when it comes to organizing like this, especially when you're
yeah,
sort of working outside the traditional liberal framework. If
yeah,
you want to do something that's sort of unobjectionably democratic, like or in line with the Democratic Party, like I don't know, abortion rights or whatever, you usually have a pretty easy time finding an apparatus that will help you do that. But that is by no means the case for all issues, and sometimes you end up
yeah.
next to some pretty wacky individual.
Our local PSL chapter has been pretty good to us. There haven't been like too rowdy or anything, which is good. I think, as you said earlier, like these like leftist organizations really are like a thousand small tents. So it really is a mixed bag. Like you're gonna get someone, and that someone could be good or bad, and it really just depends on who you are, and where you are. Um, but protests on campus have been very peaceful for the most part. The the administration had some problems with people carrying flagpoles and shit, but like um, we've been we've been good boys and girls in NBs. But like okay, wait. A lot of the organizing that's going on is trying basically to get into the room, get into like talking with the administration, and getting to maybe even talk with some of the trustees if possible. um, that was something that was brought up in the meeting with the president, and we don't really know if that's going to happen, but we're trying to like focus on whatever we can do to accomplish the next thing in a way. Our goals right now are, well, just to get support from the university at least, which is a very difficult thing to do because they're at risk of losing their like federal funding because of allegations that that universities are not making places safe for learning. Like they're not making their campuses safe learning environments for Jewish students, which again is not factual. It's just, but so we're like really fighting an uphill battle. But yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of what's next, what do you mean by that? Getting the administration's attention is one thing, but there are a bunch of ways you could potentially do it. I'm also kind of curious, like to the extent that these protests have already taken place. I want to know what you did for the protest. Obviously, over
Yeah.
specificity
Sorry.
is something you might want to avoid. But in terms of like how do you do it? Like what is the strategy? To
Oh
where do
yeah.
you
So
walk? What do you say? What are the attitudes held? That kind of stuff. You know.
yeah. So most of it is we walk around campus. We walk in the like public areas of the library, where people aren't studying because we don't want to disrupt them. That would be really rude. And the university will murder us all if we disrupt people studying during finals week.
Right.
Um, but we go through the commons, we protest outside the administration building, and it is mostly chanting. But recently, people have we've kind of upgraded our protest tactics in order to like those things were basically to get the university's attention, I guess. The next step, and I'm speaking for SJP here, so which I'm not a part of. Uh, the next step, it seems, was to get get into a conversation with the administration. So that involved like going into the administration building and letting protesters in and doing a sit-in or die-in or whatever needs to be done in order to get the attention of someone high enough up to have a productive conversation with.
And have you been able to get those done yet, or is that like future planning?
Yeah, so we did get a conversation with the president and I think the provost, something, or one of the deans, and maybe like the dean of diversity or something. And they were basically like they said all these things that I said to you, like we'll lose our federal funding. We have Chuck Schumer on the phone every time there's a protest here, to which people clapped. And basically like, look, we don't ultimately have power here. If you really have a problem, it's up to the trustees. So an SJP organizer was like, okay, let's talk to the trustees. So we're kind of waiting on a response to that request. Meanwhile, our JVP chapter. Oh, something I should mention is that both these organizations are being forced to operate completely, SJP and JVP. We're both being forced to operate completely anonymously. So everything's on, well, most of it is on Signal chats. We have to clear new members. No, we're not like, we've sworn to not say anyone's name, things like that, because we're all very concerned about a few things. We're concerned about, people losing scholarships. We're concerned about people getting doxxed. And just like having the university punish us or someone else take out their frustration on us. So it has been like pretty scary, but Meanwhile, while we're waiting for the response from the university, JVP, we're trying to schedule a screening of the film Israelism, which isn't just some like commie documentary like you were talking about earlier, how like, you know, all these left-wing organizations are basically just book clubs. And that's something I have been actively pushing our organization and our SDS chapter to not become book clubs. And people have been agreeing with me. But it's an award-winning like documentary, I think. And the goal of that is to just kind of start a conversation among students and kind of get us more support and just to educate people. Educating people is important.
What would you be showing the screening to? If you're trying to get support, presumably it wouldn't just be to people who are already a part of your organization.
Well, we will try to advertise it as best as possible and to encourage people who are not active to come. But you know, ultimately, it's up to anyone else who like it's up to people whether they want to see a movie or not. But it like we do think that.
But it would be like a public screening in a classroom or okay.
Yeah. And then if the university tries to shut us down or if people like protest outside of it, that ultimately falls in our favor anyways. So we don't have like much to lose in that on that side. Plus we're trying to get we're basically going through the faculty and like trying to get as much support as possible, and they're being very supportive, which is really nice. Do you have any more questions about like what we're doing on campus?
Well, I think I understand. It seems to me like I think that the claim about Chuck Schumer shutting down federal funding or whatever, I think that's bullshit. I think that, you know, as is so often the case, the limp-wristed administration is afraid to take any real stance because they don't want to alienate, you know, their donors, the trustees.
I mean, who knows? Chuck Schumer's a dick.
He is, yeah. But like the push necessary to strip federal funding, like you know, that would be a significant investment of political power. I feel, not to say it's impossible. It's certainly not. It's just I'm guessing they really just don't want any backlash from the trustees.
It does seem like and it is really mostly the trustees, because we even got like some support from especially the dean of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think, or I don't know who the other person in the room was. I think it was that guy. Basically being like, look, I think you guys are you should be able to protest. I don't think he necessarily gave a signal whether he agrees with us, but he definitely supports us like being able to continue. And it does feel like they're kind of cucked by the trustees.
Many such cases. The fact that the staff are positive towards what you're doing is pretty good, at least, because it means they haven't had that much pressure applied to them to sort of compel them to not positively associate with you and what you're doing. So that at the very least is good. That's a positive signifier. I hope that your screening goes well. I hope you're able to drum up some decent attention. Obviously, this is not something for which you're responsible, but in the future, it would probably be a good idea to keep students from assaulting police officers.
Yeah,
I know students be rowdy.
But there was one more thing I did want to talk about, which was, I hope, assuming we have time, which was the structure of our organization, because I think you might find that interesting.
Please.
So basically, we've committed when we formed, even our all our actions were by collective decision, and even like whether we should join Jewish Voice for Peace, Jews for Voice Peace, and we have sort of in our time that we're developing, I guess, we're very committed to remaining a democratic organization, or horizontally structured, whatever, like, direct democracy, anarchist words you want to use.
Whatever buzzwords we're fond of here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was something, I mean, not to take credit for all of this, because that's kind of the opposite of the point, but that was definitely something that I really pushed for and really wanted, because I didn't feel like any individual person should be like a leader to it. And because I just believe in, direct democracy. And so far it's been working out really well. We've had, like, as our group has grown, I think we have like 20 something members at this point, which is pretty good. As our group has grown, we have kind of had to move from our little Signal chat to a bigger Discord server, where we can just organize things better. But it is really important to us that we maintain like that collective decision making. So everything is put to a vote. Even new members, or like, we don't have anyone who, like, any individual who's able to like clear or kick members. Like, anyone who wants to get in has to be cleared by as many people are present. So that's definitely something very important for us.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that. Student organizations have a tendency to be riddled with drama, and they tear themselves apart in the long term, because there's such high turnover with people graduating. Inevitably, that will happen here too. It's unavoidable. It's just a matter of getting stuff done before that happens. The business right now in Israel is happening on such a short time span that I think student organizations are going to have a disproportionately effective band of time to influence the way things go down on their campus. For you specifically, of course, I mean, I don't know any of the details, but I hope you're able to sway a lot of people. I hope you're able to get a positive response from the admins, but I sincerely doubt the trustees will go for it, because they are, of course, wealthy, and wealthier people tend to be conservative, and conservatives tend to be Zionists. So, there's got some overlapping negative correlations there. But still, there probably is a lot that can be done. If you're getting positive responses from other students and faculty, though, that's a pretty good start.
Do you mind if I give some, like, I'm not really end notes, but just think like not recommendations. What's the word? Advice to people who are interested in, starting organizations and stuff like that, and just like working on campus and doing things, doing anything really. Yeah.
Please.
So like, basically what I've learned is, well, obviously, first of all, you have to be willing to go out there. Sorry, chat, to all the introverts and social anxiety people. You have to talk to people. But it's really important to find people who share a common vision. If you're starting an organization, that's part of why we've been very successful so far. We all agree, not on everything, but we essentially agree that we're here to get shit done. And so it's very useful to be working with people who are also here to get shit done. Unfortunately, not everywhere is like that. I think it can be useful to join organizations with the intent of, being like, hey, I think that this organization is a radical book club, and I think that we need to put more work into actual like action. But when it comes to action, I think a lot of people get lost, because the most like famous, I guess, the actions people pay attention to the most are protests. And I think that's a very small part of what activists do. And I think this is I don't think you've spread this misconception, but I do think that as just a result of how protests are focused on the most focused on the most by media, I think that you fall into this trap a little bit, where we sort of over focus on actions, and then people who self-describe as radicals but don't actually know what they're talking about. They say, well, protests aren't everything and voting isn't everything. We have to do direct action and mutual aid. And then they never elaborate on what that means. Or they just think direct action means blowing up a police station, which
they never then do, by the way. I would have, I guess, at least some lingering respect for ineffective leftists if their ineffectiveness was tied directly to their willingness to actually do the stupid shit they talk about. But instead, no, we don't even get that,
But we don't support that. We don't condone.
Of course we don't condone that, but we also don't condone laziness, chat.
Yeah. But some things that you can do, especially if you live in an urban area, there's a lot of organizations and just groups of people who are on the ground pretty much any day of the month, like actually accomplishing things. So things that you could do, if you are a chatter or just anyone, if you're on a college campus, it's worth looking at whatever orgs are on campus. And if there's no one who's really doing it for you, maybe reach out to some of the people in those orgs and be like, hey, would you like to form a new organization that's focused more on actually accomplishing things? And I guarantee you, some people will say yes, and some people is enough to start a movement. If you are living in a city, for example, there's plenty of organizations that are that give food to homeless people. There's I went to an abortion clinic defense over the summer. That was great. That's one of the things that people I think people should really mention more, because abortion is under attack in a lot of places, and there's a lot of times that we need to. There's a lot of protesters and stuff outside of abortion clinics that create a problem for people coming in. There's just all this stuff that you can do, and there is voting, but in addition to voting, and this is what I think Progressive Victory is good at, there's actually spreading the message to people, and also contacting representatives and stuff, especially local ones, because local politicians have more power than you think they do. And just having enough people to do something can just having enough people trying to force a change can eventually create a bigger movement and a bigger change. Movements start small and grow. And I just think it's really important for people to just kind of get their asses off their gaming chairs or their couch or whatever. And
Chad, I use an ergonomic chair. She wasn't referring to me. No, I mean, this'll surprise you, but I agree completely.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Also, as a linguist, I appreciate that you've been improving. I said this in chat the other day, but sometimes earlier on when you talk about linguistics, I kind of tune out because I'm like, it sounds like you're thinking the right things, but you have no idea what you're talking about. But recently, you've been doing a good job. So, yeah, good on you.
I've been upping my my Tom Scott language YouTube video consumption to absorb all knowledge in the universe.
You should learn to read the International Phonetic Alphabet. It would improve your pronunciation quite a bit.
I think my problems with my pronunciation have a lot more to do with my mind running ahead of my mouth and my lack of respect for other languages than it does with any actual hardline knowledge. All the same, I'll consider it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, it's nighttime, but you too.
Is it that time? Yeah, I guess it's winter. Take care.
It sucks. Take care.
Bye-bye. That was fun. Touching mental grass. How do people keep themselves from joining bad orgs? If there are a lot of orgs that promote good things which are terribly rotten, how do we avoid them? I feel like I only joined so many orgs because I was in uni once, right? I feel like it's kind of difficult from personal experience to extrapolate out the logic on this. But I feel like when I hear about orgs that end up going bad, a lot of the problems are evident really early on. It's almost like a bad relationship with like an abusive partner, where usually people get all starry-eyed because like they're getting sloppy-toppy, or they're like talking to other people who agree with them for the first time. But if you actually step back and like look at things critically for a second, oftentimes it's really obviously from the get-go. That's the impression I get from what I hear, at least, you know? So it's just a matter of being able to assess that.